Let's talk about one of the most common and often overlooked leadership blind spots: unintentionally reinforcing the wrong behaviors. Listen, most leaders, they don't set out to reward the wrong things, but it happens quietly and consistently. And over time, it begins to shape your culture in ways that you may not even realize. Why is that? Because employees, they pay close attention to what gets recognized, what gets attention, and what gets results. Not just what's written in policies, but what's actually experienced on a day-to-day. Let me give you a few examples of how this might show up. Let's say you have an employee who consistently steps outside of their role to save the day. They get praised even though it creates role confusion as well as dependency. You have an employee who delays work, is always slacking, but they complete everything under pressure itself. They get recognized for the outcome, but not the lack of consistency. Or how about the employee who escalates every issue to you instead of working through it and bringing you solutions? They receive time, attention, and problem-solving support. Sound familiar? Now, individually, these may not seem like major issues, but collectively, they begin to send a message. They send a message that this is what success looks like. And over time, those behaviors, they begin to become normalized itself. So instead of building a culture of ownership, accountability, and consistency itself, you instead unintentionally build a culture of dependence, urgency, as well as overfunctioning. And that gap, guys, between intention and reality is where many organizations begin to really struggle. So what does a more intentional approach look like? What is the shift that we have to make, especially if we find ourselves in this type of situation? Audit what you are reinforcing. Take a step back and observe. What behaviors are consistently getting recognized? What's getting my attention the most? That itself becomes real culture, okay? Also, align recognition with intentional behaviors. If you want to see more of ownership, productivity, accountability, then you need to call it out consistently, clearly, and specifically. Not just outcomes, but the behaviors, okay? And hear me clearly on this next one. Stop rewarding urgency as a default. Yes, urgency sometimes is necessary, but when it becomes a primary way that the work gets done, it creates burnout, inconsistency, and instability. Consistency itself should be valued just as much as the results. And speaking of results, reinforce how the work gets done. Results matter, but how those results are achieved matters just as much, okay? And that's what builds a sustainable, high-performing culture. Culture itself, guys, and keep this in mind, it isn't just on what leaders say they value. It's built on what leaders consistently reinforce. And if you want to shift your culture, then you have to start shifting what you reward. And here at LH HR Consulting, this is definitely a key area that I help organizations realign, especially when it comes to ensuring that performance expectations, recognition, and leadership behaviors all point in the same direction. Because when those things are aligned, performance improves, culture strengthens, and leadership becomes much more effective and impactful. And if this resonated, as a part of the series that I've been doing all month, where I've broken down, what leaders are getting wrong right now, and of course, how to fix it, I ask you to just like, share, comment, and subscribe. I definitely appreciate your support, but let me leave you with this before you go. What you consistently reward will always shape what your organization becomes. So choose it intentionally.